Hello to all my friends gathered at the Minnesota Pheasants Forever convention today. I think you know I would much rather be there with you in person, especially since you're at Breezy Point. But there's just a few things going on, and so I'm honored to join you via video. Some of you may not know this, but the first trip after my swearing in was to Breezy Point, and my first official visit as a United States Senator was to Pheasants Forever. It's very important to me, and your work is incredibly important. I want to thank you for your continued commitment to conservation and for all the work you're doing to protect Minnesota's nature and wildlife. Without you, we wouldn't have had the governor's first ever pheasants opener. That was a great time, and I enjoyed being there for the dinner, and I know there will be many more to come. I'd also like to thank Dave Nomsen. Over the years, Dave and I have gotten to work together closely, and through his commitment and the dedication and all of you, we've been able to protect the habitat that sustains our pheasant population. I don't need to tell you that hunting and fishing are more than just hobbies in Minnesota. They're a way of life, and they're critically important to our economy. Every year, nearly 2 million people fish our lakes and streams, and close to 700,000 people hunt our fields and forests. These activities generate about $3.6 billion in direct expenditures, with upland bird hunting alone driving about $121 million in annual retail sales and supporting thousands of jobs across our state. At last count, 2,300. That's a lot of people working. The sporting industry is a key economic driver for our state, but it's also part of our culture. We all have a stake in ensuring our outdoor traditions like pheasant hunting can continue to be passed down from one generation to the next, and I know you share my commitment to preserve this heritage for our kids and our grandkids. With your help, I've been working in the Senate to make sure we're protecting the critical habitats that pheasants and other wildlife depend on. Back during the 2008 Farm Bill debate, I fought to make sure the final legislation expanded resources for the Wetland Reserve Program, expanding it by nearly 1/3. And in the Conservation Reserve Program, we worked to maintain this critical program by focusing resources on areas where the greatest environmental and wildlife benefits can accrue, creating incentives to voluntarily open up private land to public hunting and fishing. It was truly a great team effort, and we're going to need to do that same thing again this year as we take up the 2012 Farm Bill. This bill is going to be written under some of the most challenging budgetary conditions we've ever seen. I think you know that, and I understand why everyone is concerned about what it will look like. I can tell you in some of the first work we did when we thought we had an agreement for the super committee, we stood tall, worked with Pheasants Forever to make sure conservation was preserved. We know everyone's going to take some cut, but the last thing we need is to get rid of our conservation priorities. That would be a very bad thing. I remain committed to crafting a strong bill that strengthens rural communities and continues to protect the integrity of our land and the health of our wildlife. The last thing we should do is to balance the budget on the backs of middle class or on our outdoor traditions that are a way of life in Minnesota, a way of life that we are all fighting to preserve. The importance of these efforts have become abundantly clear this winter as we've seen one of the worst drops in the pheasant population in recent memory. I don't need to tell you this was a tough year for our pheasant population, but thanks to the recent progress we've made in habitat preservation, the road to recovery may be quicker than it otherwise would have been. Like most Minnesotans, I believe we do right by ourselves when we do right by the land that sustains us. This belief was ingrained in me from when I was a kid. I was 18 years old before I took a vacation that didn't involve a tent or a camper. We always went camping. That's what we did. That was our vacation. You know, my grandpa worked 1,500 feet underground in the mines in Ely. He literally saw dark all day. So you can imagine how important it was for him to get outside and hunt and fish. You're working every day to preserve that way of life, that Minnesota way of life, so that our kids and grandkids can enjoy what my grandpa had, what my parents had, and what I have today. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for your support. I pledge to work side by side with you on this next Farm Bill and preserve conservation. Keep up the good work. Have a great time tonight. Are you eating pheasant? They don't have much of that in Washington. Anyway, have a good time.